Good evening and welcome to Book Up Conversations Series 8. Through this series, we present conversations that feature professionals and entrepreneurs as we reflect on the practical applications of all business owners should be mindful to engage as they think big and upscale operations. The focus of this evening's discussion are the financial applications that business owners should be mindful of when preparing for growth. I am your host, Alina Lewis, author and success coach, and joining the conversation in this episode is Rawle Rollocks, impact strategist at VisionWorks Solutions. From Personalized Quality Systems Limited, we have joining in Andrea Rochford, senior consultant, and Jason Thomas, consultant, as well as Candace Andrews, online event host. For reminders and notifications each time we go live, be sure to like and follow this page. So, guys, that means whether you're looking at us on LinkedIn, make sure you click that follow button. If you're on YouTube, make sure you pause now and click subscribe. And of course, if you're viewing us on Facebook, be sure to like the page. So every time we go live with another one of these conversations, you will be notified. Book Club Conversation Series 8 is brought to you through the support of Launchpad Consultancy. So even as we prepare for our guests to come on screen, let's take a word from Launchpad Consultancy. Everyone here joining in this evening. Super excited to have you in. Allow me to take a moment. We have Andrea and Jason joining us for the first time. So I'm going to put the floor open so they could introduce themselves and tell us a bit about their business, PQS. Let me put you guys on the spot a minute.
You have. Thank you, Alina. I hope you're hearing me clearly.
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you so much for having Jason and myself with you. So, personalized quality systems. We basically help businesses make it happen with their accounting systems, with their data, with their systems. We implement accounting systems. We project manage systems. We help people build their reports. We help train people. We help people learn how to use Excel, Word, Outlook, any of the things that happen. So basically, we help where software is concerned. And Jason has been with me for many years now with the business. So I'll hand over to Jason as well.
Jason, your mic is on mute.
Hi, Jason Thomas. Thanks for having us tonight. I've been with PKS for over 20 years, assisting businesses to really achieve their objectives. And there is that need. We found that there is that need because as businesses grow, they may not know which direction they need to follow. So especially when it comes to the software application aspect. So that's where we tend to step in and assist businesses in that way.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. And please, I appreciate you so much for joining in the conversation as we chat this evening about financial accounting practices. And I want to open up the discussion by asking anyone, anybody, any order, jump in. Let's share thoughts as persons listening. When we talk about financial accounting practices, what really is it that we're talking about? And I ask that because just pulling and piggybacking on a comment that Rawle made in last week's live, one of the things he was sharing is that in business, so many of us define things in such varied ways that it's always important when we're jumping into a conversation to make sure we have a sort of a working definition. So I want to open the floor. Can anyone really come in to share when we talk about financial accounting systems? What really are we talking about?
I hope you don't mind if I jump in here first,
No.
Alina.
Yes,
Um,
please
so,
do.
so for me, first of all, aside from totally scaring most business owners because they're usually terrified, it sounds very foreign, but it isn't. It's really just about recording what you're doing in the business so that you will be able to have a handle and as well report what is happening. So it's a twofold thing. So basically, it's just recording what you do on a day-to-day business in your on a day-to-day happening in your business and producing those reports so that you know what has happened. And that's how I see it.
Yeah. Thank you, Andrea. So even as we continue on with our conversation, I want to ask, now that we have a working definition about financial accounting practices, I want us to keep in mind persons who are probably new, they're emerging, they maybe just launched their business during the pandemic, or maybe they're just a couple of years in and they haven't really given much thought to the idea of financial accounting and those practices. What do emerging entrepreneurs need to be mindful of when starting their businesses as it relates to proper financial accounting?
Well, I could take this one. A lot of the times, when we find businesses now start to emerge, financial accounting software or financial accounting processes, procedures are the first thing that they need, but the last thing that they invest in. In other words, it tends to be the thing that they think they need the least. But if you're doing any type of growth or any strategy and you have to deal with the banks, you'd realize that it is of primary importance to have this sort of data readily available in order to make any kind of quick progress. So a lot of businesses leave it until it gets to that point, and then it's a scramble to try to compile data for 1 year, 2 years going back. And it becomes problematic because at that moment it stunts your growth because you're not able to adequately move forward at the pace that you want to move because you're now hamstring trying to um, capture or recapture what has gone. So it's that concept of data and understanding that data that is so important from the onset that a lot of small businesses don't quite get. They think yes, we're making money, there's cash flow, and that is the major concern. But it's not only the only thing that would influence growth and influence investors and people to have confidence in your business. Really what drives that confidence and what the bank's really looking for, lending institution, is data. They want to see your trends. They want to see how you're doing. They want to see how your values are stacked in your business. So for me, it's in terms of understanding how your business operates from a data point of view.
Yeah.
And
Roll, I
so
want
if
to.
I, sorry, Alina, no, I was just going
No,
to
you go right
add,
on ahead.
I was just going to add to that with Jason that if you're emerging and the three points that I think people should look at. The first is you should be capturing all your invoices. The second one is you should be capturing what your expenses are. And if you do those two things, then you will know what your profit and loss is. So if you're emerging and you're starting, you don't have to do anything else right now. But I think those are the three things you should be focusing on for sure.
Yeah. I wanted to ask Roll. I know that you would have spent a lot of years coaching and working with entrepreneurs, and I want to ask you. Quite often, people tend to think I don't have time for that. That's not important right now. I need to run the business. I need to get a sale. I don't have money for that. I don't have time. What do you say to persons who are in that mind frame to help them understand the importance of what we're terming as financial accounting practices or effective financial accounting practices?
Yes, thank you for that question, and good evening, everyone. All those in Facebook land or YouTube, wherever you're listening to us, and fellow panel. I want to jump from what Jason mentioned, and I think it's very important when we're talking about what practices. I think it's important to understand why it's important. And Jason was itemizing some things that identify why it's very important. And that's the thing, I think people sometimes are not too clear. For some persons, it's just about meeting a statutory requirement. In other words, government says we need to produce this report so I can do my taxes, so let me just do it. All right? But I think if you follow what Jason was saying, it's also important for decision making. And one of the things that I have faced is that sometimes you go and you ask persons for the reports and they've never looked at it, they've just submitted it. They haven't looked at the trends, so they don't know if the business are going up or going down. They don't have a real sense. So they don't have a real sense of the data. And I'll give you a case in point. I had a client who was doing catering, right? And she was doing a lot of these Italian meals, and she was doing this Alfredo, for those of you that know the Italian meals, right? And this thing was a big seller. So she was telling me, man, this thing is just selling. People are just here, and the chef is doing such a great job. But when we went into her accounts, she didn't realize that it wasn't priced properly. All right? And it was costing her. She was selling it at a loss. You understand? So even though, as Jason mentioned, there was cash moving, because she has a range of other products, she wasn't looking at this particular product. She didn't have a sense of what it really costs to produce, right? And whether that cost was increasing or decreasing. And that takes a little while to work out. It's not automatic. So somebody would say, oh yes, I plan to do food and my unit cost would be X. So for every box that I sell, it's going to cost me $20. That is not an automatic thing. That is something you work out over time by having the data to look at it. So those are the kind of experiences that I've had that show me that sometimes we don't understand how valuable it is to have the records so we can make the proper decisions, because sometimes it means you have to cut something from your menu. Sometimes it means you have to get an alternative source of supply, But how are you going to make those decisions if you don't have the proper data? You understand? Especially when you're doing multiple products and multiple services, all right? And it helps you to know what to account for. Sometimes people don't know what to account for. So they're using the private phone and they're not accounting for it. They're using gas, but they're not doing proper accounting. They have somebody helping out. So by having these practices, you get a clear sense of what to account for, how to account for it, and how to build that into the cost of doing business,
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And before we continue, and I want to remind those who are viewing live, we welcome your questions, we welcome your comments. We do have Andrea and Jason from Personalized Quality Systems Limited in with us this evening, and I'm sure they're going to be more than happy to answer any question you may have. Candace, I want to put you on the spot. And I want to ask you, I know in our last live, you talked about really pivoting and re-emerging, during the pandemic. And even as you consider the conversation so far, I would love to hear your view as a new emerging entrepreneur and how the impact of trying to put in place financial practices have been for you. How has that experience been for you?
Indeed. And I'm so happy for the other voices in this conversation because, of course, they will be able to bring the terminology and stuff like that. And I just want to add, the experience has been quite an adventure. And one of the popular phrases that you hear, especially in business, is this idea of M&E, monitoring and evaluating as a practice, across the board. But for me, I come from the theater world and I'm very abstract. So I like to see M&E as mindset and emotions. And a lot of people are not aware of taking record and taking check and stock of their mindset and their emotions. They get into business, they have an amazing product, they have amazing customer service, but their mindset is not meeting the standard that they are producing. And of course, their emotions are very caught up. So for me, when I started my business, my mindset, let's just say out of 100, it was at 80, right? Because I have been reading a lot of books, but my emotions was at somewhere at 20. So when I would set my prices and stuff, people will call with the sad stories and say, well, I don't have money, I can't afford it. And I was like, no worries, payment plans, everybody is welcome. The door is welcome and open. And I did not realize that, Candace, while you are loving and you want to help people and you want to support them, your emotion is going to cost you. So I want to switch around that question and say, what are the financial strains, practices, lifestyles, habits, and mindsets and beliefs that we are not accounting for that is affecting our finances? Because definitely my emotions cost me. Definitely I was making money, yes, but just enough to pay everyone who was around supporting the cause. And the profit for me was a good feeling, but at the end of the day, I can't take good feelings to Pennywise and get all the hair products and stuff that I need. So one thing I want persons to know, don't enter being led by your emotions alone, because your emotion is going to send you down a path where you think it's okay, and then you stumble upon all the other issues that you did not account for. So I want us to measure the non-tangible things and account for it. How much is this costing me? And yeah, that is my experience. So going forward, I definitely have to put the emotions aside, help persons as much as I can, but make sure that it does not strain the business, because if the business makes no money, we can't continue to serve and do what we have to do. So that's just a snippet of my experience. So yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. Really appreciate it. And I want to just piggyback on something you were saying, Candace, as you mentioned mindset. And as we know that as we continue to grow in business and as we prepare for growth and expansion, what we do, how we do, when we do, it's some adjustment. And so I want to ask those in with us in studio this evening, when we consider those entrepreneurs that are preparing for growth, whether it's an expanded service line, a new product, getting into the export market, or maybe just switching up their business model altogether. As they prepare for growth, what changes should they be mindful of to really enact and to embrace in terms of their financial accounting practices so that they can be equally as effective with their recording and their data collection and analysis as compared to maybe when they were operating at that smaller level. So in this moment, I really want us to focus on those growing organizations. What should they be doing differently? What should they be adding to their financial accounting practices to make sure they're staying on board and they're to really fulfill whatever the requirements are? What do they know? Jason, can I volunteer you? I'll
Sure.
take that smile as a yes.
I would say, in terms of any kind of growth, should be backed with some sort of research. The numbers tend we all have good ideas, or we have good ideas from time to time in terms of this looks like promising, or this looks feasible, but it should be backed with some sort of research and some sort of forecast in terms of how do you intend to enter this area? What are the costs involved? What is my budget? What is my turnaround time? How soon am I expecting to see profits? And it sounds like a lot of maths, but it essentially is. But it's really to support that idea or that feeling that you have that this might be successful. And the reason you want to do that is because you want some sort of proof to yourself that the idea is feasible, as well as if you're looking for investment in order to grow, you would also have to prove the idea to someone else. And the easiest way to do that is by having the necessary research and the numbers to back up your idea. So I would think that, in terms of your finances and your budgeting and your forecast, those are useful tools for getting you into new and emerging fields that you want to go to, but the research is priceless.
Yeah, thank you. Andrea, I want to pull on your many years of experience, and I want to ask you if you could speak about fear. Of course, not your fear, but the fear you would encounter when dealing with clients. Because I'm sure so often we have persons, they're preparing for growth. They know they need to do things differently, but fear comes in. Fear says, I don't know if I could do this. I don't know if I could afford this. I don't know if I could trust the accounting people. There's so much to fear. Can you help people understand how to process those emotions and thoughts that come that prevent them from embracing better financial accounting practices as their business grows?
That if I knew what I know now when I started out, I don't know if I would have done it right. Because and you recognize all the things that could happen or go wrong. So you said don't talk about my own fear, but I'm a business owner. I had fear too, and I continue to have fear, right? So really the entrepreneur mindset is a fearless type of mindset. Huh? You go out there thinking you can conquer the world. And when you're doing that kind of conquering, if you have the data, it helps make those decisions, right? And so you're not guessing. You're not trying to figure it out. You're not working on the emotion. You're not just selling something because everybody seems to like it. Like what Rawle was saying with the Alfredo. We actually have had clients like that who have sold things and then realize that they were just selling it at a loss. So yes, that fear and combating that fear, that accounting and the accounting systems evokes a lot of fear. A lot of times you're doing the thing, you're a creative person, and you're doing those things because you don't like numbers. And so those numbers incur a lot of fear, and you just have to recognize it's just things on paper. It's nothing to be afraid of. Once you incorporate it into your everyday business life, so you don't do it as an after fact. You do it as part of your everyday existence. And then it loses the scariness. It loses the maths. It loses the thing that makes it seem so scary to you. Right? And doing things like approaching banks, for example, is something that scares people a lot. And so I often tell people, approach those banks when you don't need them. Before you need that big loan.
Yeah.
Right? Put those numbers down on the paper and approach the bank before you need them. Because it takes away that fear. Because, down the road you're gonna need a $20,000 loan. Go to them and take a $2,000 or $3,000 or $5,000 loan before you need it. And pay it back and give them the numbers that they're asking about so that it makes it feel better. So that when you approach them for the $20,000 loan, that fear is gone.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that, I hope that answers your question, Alina.
Oh, yes, definitely. And, I want to ask Rawle, because I know you've done so much consulting that you would have worked with persons across industries over the years. In your experience, preparing for growth and adapting more effective financial accounting practices, is it different based on the industry that it's in? Is there a different mindset that is needed? What can you share so persons don't feel left out because they think, oh, well, I'm in service or I'm in education or I'm in engineering, so it doesn't apply to me. What do people need to understand when they receive this information, giving consideration to their various industries that they may represent?
There may be some in terms of an attitude. I think the principles are the same across the board. One of the things that I know as I look at my own life as a business person and my clients, this whole question of being in the and working on the business. So at some point in time, you have to make that transition. And oftentimes when you're in your business, you find that I don't have time to look at records and why I'm doing my business, I'm making the money. All right. But as you begin to grow, the question of working on your business becomes critical because the decisions you make at that time can be extremely crippling, costly, and affect you in a fundamental way. So to me, it brings upon the question of delegation as you're growing, right? This question that as you begin to expand, you can't do all the things that you did before, handle the accounts, and you have to think about how you are going to expand because now you have people to pay. You may need somebody to handle your payables. You have to run down money. Sometimes running down money or getting the money that's owed to you, that's almost like a job by itself. So you need some receivables help. You understand? So this whole question of beginning to think about delegation and how you delegate is very important. And I think, and this is something too that PQS can speak to. When you have a good accounting system, I'm sure that it can help make a lot of difference. All right, because there's so much software now that can make that a little easier in terms of keeping those records and so forth. So I think the question of delegation is important as you begin to expand and grow, and I think that's across all industries as you grow. That's a pretty common principle. I think you're muted.
Alina, you're muted.
I realize.
You're
Thank you. Even as you touched on that, I want to talk about the whole idea of embracing systems. I know Rawle, you're a systems person, and I'm sure Maria and Jason are prime on effective systems. And I want to start the conversation with Candace. A lot of times, persons who are not usually using apps and ICTs and other computer-based technologies, they tend to be fearful of getting into it. And I know one of the things you do, Candace, you do a lot of motivational sharing and so on. So I want to ask you, do you have anything that you would like to share with persons who may be sitting listening to the conversation and saying, I don't know if I want to learn that, I don't know if I can get into that, that's too much for me? What in the mindset can you share to help people to understand why they should not be afraid of adapting new systems, even if it's computer based or otherwise?
Yeah, that's an interesting question because I remember I got an opportunity to go to a free workshop in Guyana to learn about financial management and stuff. And I'm like, they don't know I suffer to get a 2 in maths. Like, what are they doing to me? And I did accounting at secondary school, and it was a nightmare. But thank God I realized that if it's almost like if you don't there's a soca song in Trinidad now around, if you don't drink water and mind your business, somebody else might mind it for you and they may not know what to do. So I think it is very important to face the figures and face the fact that you need to be an observer on this whole thing. And I like to use analogies. And when I first started, I said, Candace, you have to be like the farmer. The farmer will put the seed in the soil, he will water it and whatever, but really and truly, he don't really have much weight on what is produced. He has faith in God, he's hoping that rain falls, and he puts out the weeding and stuff. But if the farmer doesn't go daily to observe the crop, he can lose out, he can miss out. So I think what I want to tell persons is that try and be observant about your business. Find a software, get online banking where you can actually monitor what's happening with your figures, where they're going, what am I spending it on. And I think 3 things I will drop. and I like to use acronyms. And you know, everybody big on iOS these days. So the my iOS or system will be individual development. If you don't know, find somebody who knows, sit under them, have tea with them, and get all the information that you need. And people think individual development is just doing a course, but it's actually being accountable and somebody being accountable to you as well. The second thing, as I said, was the observation part. I don't think people observe where their money go and the activity of their money. They just allow it to be. And when that happens, you really can't take track or record or stock of it. And finally, the software I learned about was QuickBooks in the workshop, right? I sure all of you might smile in 3 seconds because you all know what QuickBooks is. But I said you have to start small with a system that might be user friendly, but as you expand, and especially as a creative entrepreneur, I don't want to be focusing on the finances. So that's why I will, as Rawle said, delegate, outsource accountants to help in that process, because I realize when I focus on all of these administrative things, it doesn't mean I will take myself fully out of the equation. But when I have to deal with all these administrative stuff, my creativity sometimes is sapped because I'm like, all right, how are we going to make use of this 10,000 or this, set of money? So I think to summarize it, in addition to delegation, I really believe we need to just be honest with ourselves and say, you know what, I need the help. I can't do it on my own. And I really need to sit with persons and find an accountability circle that would help me. And I know soon you're going to ask what book we recommend. And since I'm on the matter of accountability, I will highly recommend this book. It's called The Accountability Circle, and it speaks about, we are responsible for things, but we should also be accountable to people. And I think a lot of us lose money because we are sitting in the wrong circles. Yeah, that's all I'll share for now.
Thank you, Candace. And even as you were just chatting about get the people to help, Personalized Quality Systems Limited, they're here to help. The upper echelon of the accounting support services here in the region. And so I want to open the question to PQS, whether Andrea, whether Jason. I want to ask you guys, could you share a bit to help entrepreneurs, whether emerging, established, large, wherever they fall? So how does the use of systems impact the efficiency of the practices? Because ultimately, and I know Jason touched on it a bit earlier when he started talking about data and the use of data, but I also know here Trinidad and Tobago and in the Caribbean as well, sometimes we take these things for granted because we have a more laid back culture here. We have a laid back approach to so many things. So I really wanted to open the floor to you guys. Ask you, could you take a moment to really share about the importance of getting those software systems, the importance of understanding that it is an investment so that we're not running from it and doing our business harm, but embracing something that is important, just as a physical piece of equipment would be, that this investment is equally as important. Allow me to open the floor to you guys.
Okay, so thanks very much. First of all, I want to challenge Candace that the systems and the software is really to become part of your business. I think the businesses that over the years that we have seen be successful in using the software and being successful as a business generally are the ones who don't have it separate with an advisor or doing it outside or outsourced it. It's those who put the software in their business and use it to generate the invoice, use it to generate that voucher for the check, use it to do the bank rec and check the statements. When they do a stock count, use the system to do that stock count. And this is one-man businesses and multi-million-dollar businesses. When they do that and they make the software a part of what they are doing, that is when it really makes a difference and when it really happens and works in the business. Jason, what would you say? Do you see that that is what really makes the difference when that happens?
I do, because it boils down to once it's a part of your business and it's active and it's flowing and it's very fluid, then everything is before you, and you just need to run to the system, and the system will tell you what's happening. When it's apart from your business and it's outsourced, it means that you're dependent upon someone else providing you with the data at a later date to tell you how your business is doing 2 months ago or 3 months ago, whereas you would like to know what's happening in your business now. So it helps it helps so that you can view your current state versus your past state. So you really want to use systems so that you can evaluate your current state versus where you were 2 months ago or 3 months ago when you have somebody entering in the system after the fact. I mean, so it means that currently all you're doing is you're making decisions in the dark because there's no system to support what you're doing. There's no system to help you to make those decisions. And anything that you learn from external inputs or people doing it on the outside, it comes sometimes way too late to help you with what you're dealing with currently.
So let me as well give a practical example to this and how it could help you, somebody like yourself, Candace, or you, Rawle, and your clients. Let us say that you are using the system to actually put in your customer and generate your invoice. So if you're using QuickBooks, there's another piece of software that we use sometimes called Xero for small clients, or Sage 50, Peachtree, the most popular, I would say, small business package in Trinidad, between QuickBooks and Peachtree. Peachtree was the leader for many years, now called Sage 50. When you put in that invoice and that customer, before you generate that invoice, if you just categorize what type of customer it is it private? Is it public? Is it a supermarket? Is it a particular type of business? Is it a distributor? I don't know who are the people you focus on. Is it corporate? Is it a single person who you're doing, like Rawle said, weddings or anything like that? You categorize it and you put in those few invoices every week. At the end of 2 or 3 weeks, at the end of a month, you're going to be able to see what type of client did I really do. I remember when I started business, I didn't realize a third was private, a third was public, a third was big multinationals. And that helped me to make certain decisions. The most exciting thing when I first set up and we do a 1 month accounting is to run that categorization of who is your customer, who is your top 10 customers if it's a large business, or who is your top 10%, who are the ones bringing in that business for you. So it's always a surprise for the business owner. They don't realize who they think is making them money is who's not making them money. Right? Who they should target, they only realize that when we run the reports for the first time. So that is just a small example, and that is true of any business, any industry, any size. That is going to give so much value to you. So Alina.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that. Rawle, even as we wind down, I want to ask you, I really want to put out there the whole idea of the impact that COVID has had on business owners as they adjust and as they change. When we look at the notion of proper financial practices, and we consider the many challenges business owners face because of COVID, what would you say business owners should be sure to to remember or to be intentional about doing or not doing to make sure they're enhancing their business operations and not harming because of fear or lack of understanding?
Yeah, I would definitely reiterate something that was mentioned before. All right, and when you're in a volatile situation and things are changing quickly, the importance of your data, it becomes even more critical, because now you have to make decisions almost on a day-to-day basis as to where you're going to position your company, your organization, or whatever you're doing. All right. So as we know, a lot of persons have had to pivot. All right. So some persons sat and realized, wait now, if I do business at home, and they began, when they look at the accounts, they realize doing business at home, you have the plus, you have the minuses, but when you get the data, you're able to make a decision about some of these pivots that a lot of persons have had to make. All right. So I'd say definitely, as far as the decision making, it becomes even more critical because things are changing rapidly and you need to be on top of your data. And I think honestly, it's one of the areas that beat us here. All right. In place in the region, in Trinidad, we are not big on the data and analytics. And when you realize how important analytics, anybody who's going on Facebook or social media, you begin to realize that the analytics they're critical, and we miss these things, and because of that we miss a whole lot of information. Every day we're producing all kinds of information, but because we haven't categorized it, like how Andrea mentioned earlier, because we don't have it summarized and we don't have it in reports, then we really can't. We're missing a lot of important decisions we need to make. So I think it's very, very important and needs to be underscored, the value of having these systems. Now, I also want to add, particularly now, and it's been a fear that I have had, now persons have to consider the cloud. All right. And when we look at how a lot of business is going, and I know Andrea and they can speak to this, a lot of software, a lot of this thing is moving to the cloud. And when you think in terms of the cost savings, when you think in terms of agility and the speed, and even as a small person being able to manage it, going to the cloud has so many advantages. And when I say going to the cloud, what I mean is you have the traditional software that you put on your system. Am I right, Jason? But you also have service that's done via the internet. All right, where you access the software system via the internet. And I don't want to go too deep before I start sounding like I don't know what I'm talking about. But I have seen this, and something I have actually learned from PQS, because it's a question that I have asked them, because I've had clients coming to me and say, I don't like this cloud thing. If I go to the cloud, somebody's going to take my data, somebody's going to hack, and I'm going to lose all this data. Then somebody's going to be me, and they're going to be impersonating. People have all kinds of weird ideas about it. So I know this is something that PQS can speak to as well, the importance of cloud-based systems.
Yeah, guys, this has been such a rich conversation, and even as we tone down and we close up, I want to stick with Rawle, and we'll make a circle around the screen. I want to ask you for your recommendation, and after you've given your recommendation for whatever resource, I really want to remind you, please tell people how they could find you. And if you have any promotions right now, feel free to share. So Rawle, let me zoom in on you, so you could just do that bit of sharing, please.
Yes, hello again, everyone listening. And you can find me right here on Thursdays at 8 o'clock. All right? Right here, you can find me as part of Book Club Conversation Series 8, Modus Operandi. But if not, you can find me. Otherwise, you can find me on Facebook at VisionWorks Solutions, online at visionworks.solutions. You can find me there as well. Same thing for LinkedIn. The handles are all the same. What I'd like to share with persons, I came across something many years ago called the small business accounting handbook. All right. And if you go up on the Inland Revenue site, you can see this document and download. And in this document, it has everything you need to know as a small business in terms of setting up your accounts, what books you need to set up, how do you account for depreciation, how do you pay your taxes, everything in one book. So I would suggest it's a book that I referenced when I was getting into business, and I would suggest that you check it up on Inland Revenue's website. Maybe later on we'll be able to give the actual URL so that you know exactly where to go. But definitely, I would recommend this book as a real how-to book for persons in business today.
Thank you, Rawle. Candace, I know you shared your resource already, so could you please take a minute to remind viewers how they could find you and if you have any particular promotions happening at this time?
Sure, sure. So I'm in the midst of setting back up my social media franchise, what I like to call it, because if social media is just for you to communicate and network and just have fun without finding a way to impact persons and even make some money, then I'm not too sure what we're social about, but it's all good, whatever your decision is. But you can find me on LinkedIn at Candace Andrews. You can hit me a message as well on email, Gmail, that is theatre, theatre, Candace Life at gmail.com. You can send me a message there. And right now, I am working with corporations and NGOs who want to be visible again in the pandemic. So I'm teaching their employees how to host online events, whether it be panel discussions, whether it be workshops, so that they can stay relevant and stay visible. And I have, just because you watch this and you let me know if you saw this on YouTube, there's a special discount inside for you. And of course, I am all about love. So I am also hosting weddings in person. And of course, while I'm there, I also connect with your online viewing audience. So that's also fun. So yeah, so you could send me a message and let me know how I could serve you.
Thank you so very much, Candace. Jason.
Jason, I
Muted,
don't think
Jason.
we're hearing you.
Okay. So you can find us at www.pqsys.com. That's our website. And one thing I'd like to say to entrepreneurs is that, there's so many different types of software out there. Don't be afraid to explore. And in choosing an accounting package, choose one that best fits your model. There's so many options right now, each tailored to different types of models or businesses. So really explore and choose something that works for you. If you need help, you know where to find us. pqsys.com, and we'll be able to help you with that.
Thank you. Andrea.
Yeah, so Jason told you how to find us. If you want to email info@pqsys.com, you can. If you find Andrea Rochford, you can call me. My phone number is there online. You can send us an email on LinkedIn or just an email generally. Please feel free to reach out. So the resource that I would like to share with you all is something called investopedia.com. And when people like to bandy about cost of sales, balance sheet, profit and loss, and you're like, what the heck is that? Look it up on investopedia.com. I'm hoping that you'll be able to get it in the meeting notes. Alina, I don't know if you all normally post those. So
Yes.
that link will be able to give you, and you'll be able to read, and it will explain to you some of the things that you need to do. What special deals do we have on right now? Basically, it is a special deal that we always have on, that if you want to come and discuss anything, that first conversation is always free. And we can help guide you and point you in the right direction. Please reach out to us. We are happy to discuss and help you and guide you on some options. They have free options, they have paid options, and we would be happy to have that initial discussion with you so that we can help you in your business and help you succeed.
Thank you so much, Rawle, Candace, Jason, Andrea. Thank you so much for joining in for this edition of Book Club Conversations. Of course, those who are live and those who will watch the restream, remember that we will be posting links in the comment section below so that you can access all of the tips and sites and resources that were mentioned today. Continue to stay safe. Make sure you click that notification bell wherever you find one so that when we go live next week, you would be the first one to get notified. Have a good evening to the panelists, to the viewing audience. Thank you for joining in once again. And until next week,